Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name's Lucy Handley. I do adult programs for the Ridgefield Library, and tonight I'm very happy to introduce the curator and moderator of this series, Barb Fulton Jenis, who is the Poet Laureate Emerita of Ridgefield and who has published two chapbooks and does immeasurable things for our town,
Oh,
arranging so many events. Welcome, Barb.
well, thank you, Lucy, and thank you, Ridgefield Library, for always hosting us. It's a wonderful facility and so many wonderful programs being offered to the community and regions. So, as all of our wonderful Connecticut libraries are such a vital resource. So, happy National Poetry Month. If you haven't been wished that yet, I'm sure you all got pranked yesterday, but this is not a prank. We have some wonderful poet guests with us this evening to celebrate the month. And you'll get to hear their work. Before we launch into this evening's reading, I'd like to also invite you to join us next month, the first Wednesday evening in May. I forget which day it is specifically, but when we'll have Julie Chaffee, Brent Terry, Sean Von Briesen, Rhonda Ward, and Jonas Vandis joining us as our five poets. So also, before we move forward, I want to also invite you all and people who see this on the YouTube channel to feel free to submit, throw your hat into the ring. We'd love to welcome you as one of our poets going forward. You just send me your name, the town of your residence, and expressing your interest to be a Poems from Connecticut's Four Corners reader. And my email is barbjenis@gmail.com. So we look forward to hearing, and all levels of skill and publication histories are welcome. We'd like to have a nice mixture. So anyway, okay, moving on to tonight. We have five amazing poets. We're going to start off the evening with Scott Frey. Scott is a poet and educator whose recent work has been widely published, including in the Missouri Review, where he received the Perkoff Prize for Poetry. His chapbook, Strange Vigil, was a winner in the Black River Chapbook Competition and will be published this fall. His book, Heavy Metal Nursing, won the Tampa Review Prize for Poetry. Scott and his wife, Meryl, run a nonprofit charity, the Charlotte Frey Foundation, whose mission is to help children with multiple handicaps and life-threatening illnesses, as well as their families. So please check the chat section. I'm going to put the full bio for each of our poets there, but we're so glad to have you here, Scott.
Well, thank you so much, Barb, and thank you, Lucy. It's just an incredible honor and delight to be here with all of you and to be able to read with these four poets who I admire tremendously, and really to be gathered together in this space, making some meaning together through language spoken and received is just a real thrill. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
I am going to start with the poem. I'm going to read three poems, and I'm going to start with the poem that opens my collection, Heavy Metal Nursing. It's kind of a baptism of sorts, so I think it's a good entry into the evening. And the book Heavy Metal Nursing is really all about, kind of as Barb mentioned in the bio, it's about my wife and family and I's experiences with our oldest daughter, Charlotte, who had a major brain injury when she was born, and then died a little bit before she turned 4. And really sort of diving into the mix of sorrow and wonder that was present in those years. And this first poem takes place in the early days when we're in the neonatal ICU, the NICU at Children's Hospital Boston, having just sort of received some devastating news about our daughter's condition, and in those moments we're trying to cling to anything we can. The other thing I want to tell you about this first poem is that it's a poem about breastfeeding, and it's at the time that our daughter was born, the breast pump of choice was the Medela Symphony. So I'm going to mention the symphony referring to that breast pump. So this is called the pumping room. Outside the noises and needs of the neonatal ICU, the hallway sign says pumping room. Could be a porn channel, I whisper to my wife. She mentions milk and an udder, chuckles as we wheel a yellow symphony with its cord and coiled tubes. I pull on the blue gloves for a smaller nurse's hands. Massage my wife's knotted ducts while she cups a plastic funnel with each hand. My thumbs and hairy wrists break through thin latex like baby robins. Shredded gloves dangling like old shells as we coax forth milk for the small, tender mouth that might never drink it. She fills the bottles and I turn the symphony off. No matter how quickly I remove the cups and she replaces the pads, thin jets arc into the air, washing us with sweet milk as we crack up, anointed anew for the work set before us. The second poem I'm going to read for you is a newer poem, and the title of this poem is not my words. It's the title of a YouTube video, which will sort of be explained in the course of the poem, and it focuses on my younger son, who has a high functioning form of autism spectrum disorder. And I think that's all you need to know for this one. So this is my first time reading this one, so go easy on me here. This is called Little Girl Goes to Heaven While Her Parents Watching. Emotional. In the screen's light, inches from his face, an astronaut on a rocket scooter tumbles across her gown. She has an IV, a blood pressure cuff, a face pink behind her nasal cannula. I'm glued where I've crept to peer over my son's shoulder while he studies YouTube for sense in social situations, rehearsing life. He can't put into words how he arrived at Little Girl Goes to Heaven while her parents watching, emotional, instead of skateboards and sneakerheads. It has 19 million views. I know this little girl's not dying, her dad's hand at her hip, mom's hand on her brow, because after years in hospitals, my daughter died in my lap at this age. In the screen's light, the gray in his eyes eats the blue. His lips mouth the words the little girl prays. Now I lay me down to sleep. Not long ago, he was licking the floor in the Walmart toy aisle, smearing input on his hungry tongue. In the video, the girl tells the nurse removing her IV, "Thank you for helping me." She asks, "Will I feel normal again?" And there's that word he's chasing, knocking his fist to his palm along with her, playing rock, paper, scissors behind the bed's tall rail. Yesterday, he said "bam" as he finished his math problems. Bam, crossing off each one. In my throat, words about editing, how actors play surgeons, how bold white letters filling a screen don't make a thing true. I reach my hands to his shoulders and squeeze. giving the pressure he seeks when wedging himself deep in snow or asking us to bury him in sand. In the video, the girl's fallen asleep. As she wakes, she asks, "Am I here?" When she answers, he says, along with her, "I'm here." All right, and then the last poem that I'm gonna read tonight. A lot of the poems in this is another poem from Heavy Metal Nursing, and a lot of the poems that have come together for me sort of come together as ways of reaching out and honoring caregivers and honoring the incredible care that our daughter received at the hands of many nurses and doctors, and in this case, her speech therapist and physical therapist. So this is a praise song to caregivers, and it's also a celebration of Velcro. I think I was watching Ira Flato on Science Friday or something like that, and was delighted by Velcro. So this is Velcro Ode. How wondrous when two strips reach, their lips pursed, ready to lock together. Partners stooping through the loop to hook and hold the other side. Opening the velvet cockleburrs is a crowd's roar. Let us take this tired flap, its last frayed fibers clutching over the tongue, and sing. How a 5-inch square supports an entire ton. How it clamps a wound closed, or attaches watch to spacesuit for Armstrong's steps on the moon. Or how it helps a 2-year-old, so sick she can't hold up her head in her car seat, her chin pitching down, closing her airway. A simple thing, really, to breathe, but hard to sustain sometimes, unless you know to kneel and watch and listen. How breath halts and catches, how the head tilts left before falling forward. Riding along, knowing this small thing, you can glue gun strips to each arm of a mini airplane pillow and glue partner patches atop the car seat straps, then sandwich them to cushion chin and cheek, which keeps her head up, which in turn makes them lifelines that may have clamped the caps back onto bottles of Zoloft and Vicodin her mom pondered downing before learning she can drive alone with her daughter to support groups and doctor's offices, to orchards and aquariums without risking her asphyxiation. And so, ripping open the cell door of the apartment, taking that first step out, a giant one. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, Scott. Tell us a bit about the title, Heavy Metal Nursing. Can you fill us in a little bit about that? That's very intriguing.
Sure, thank you. I'd be delighted. So that was, I had another working title, and I had the incredible blessing and privilege of, as I'm sure all of us can attest to, having a great reader so I have a poem in here called Heavy Metal Nursing, which is about an actual heavy metal nurse, which is not necessarily how you would picture a nurse who's caring for your young daughter. And so, but then of course, as he suggested that, it was very much, you know, it felt like a metaphor for parenting in general, and for caring for one another in grief, and then caring in particular for a child with a lot of special needs. So.
Wow, excellent. Oh, wow. Beautiful poem. Thank you so much. Very, very moving. So and be sure to, poets, be sure to check the chat too for comments that are made. And feel free to put a comment in the chat. The poets, the readers really love to see what you have to say. So, all right. So next we have V. Penelope Pelizzon as our second poet. V. Penelope Pelizzon's A Gaze Hound That Hunteth by the Eye was longlisted for the National Book Critics Circle Award and was LitHub Favorite Poetry Collections of 2024 was one of them. Her first book, Nostos, won the Poetry Society of America's Norma Farber First Book Award. Her second book, Whose Flesh is Flame, Whose Bone is Time, was a finalist for the Anthony Hecht Poetry Prize. She is a professor of English at the University of Connecticut. So please welcome V. Penelope Pelizzon. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Barb. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Is the volume okay? Okay, great. Thank you, Barb, so much for organizing this really wonderful gathering, bringing together this group of poets. And Lucy, thank you for facilitating with your beautiful green background there. It's so nice to see that. Scott, it was a real pleasure to hear your poems and to learn about that book. I'm never going to take Velcro for granted again. As long as I live, I will be thinking about that poem. I'm going to just read a few poems from A Gaze Hound That Hunteth by the Eye, and then I'm going to read actually a new poem tonight. So we'll test drive that here with you. I'm going to read a poem called Cliché to start with. This is a poem. I don't think there's anything you need to know about it except that it involves walking on the beach, which maybe is something that many people like to do. So it's a kind of poem hopefully everyone can see themselves in. Cliché. It's back and forth ad nauseum ought to make the sea a bore, but walks along the shore cure me. Salt wind's the best solution for dissolving my ennui in, along with these protean sadnesses that sometimes swim invisibly as comb jelly, a glass or two of wine below my surface. Some regrets won't untangle. Others loosen as I watch the waves spreading their torn nets of foam along the sand to dry. I walk and walk and walk and walk, letting their haul absorb me. One seal's hull, scuttled to bone staves, gulls scream, wheeling above. And here, small, diabolical, a skate's egg case, its horned purse nested on pods of bladderwort that still squirt brine by the eyeful. Some oily slabs of whale skin, or no, just an edge of tire flensed from a commoner leviathan. Everywhere, plastic nurdles gleam like pearls or caviar for the avian gourmand, and bits of sponge dab the wounded rack line, dried to froths of air smelling of iodine. Hours blow off down the beach like spindrift, leaving me with an immense, less solipsistic sense of ruin and, as if it's a gift, assurance of ruin's recurrence. Okay, and I'm going to switch climates here. So we're moving from a watery, beachy setting to a winter landscape. This is a poem loosely based on an actual incident that happened. I had a skiing accident. It could have been bad, but it wasn't because some kindly people found me. But I sort of felt after this event happened, and I was in the emergency room, kind of having my arm put back together, that I sort of owed a death to the forest where I hadn't died. And so this poem is sort of the death that I owed to the forest. You can't really, maybe you'll hear it. It's in these sort of off-rhymed haiku stanzas, so every stanza is a haiku, but it's very narrative, so that kind of gets lost in the tumble over. Ill-starred. So I'm just watching my timer here. Okay, ill-starred. Ice, tree, your ski pole jabbed at the wrong sharp angle. Flung forward, your sprawl seems slow-mo. You're like a starfish peeled off its rock, rough hands have tossed back. Terribly free, it hangs in the air an instant, twinkling. Then you hit, hearing a soft crunch. Had you descended an inch closer to the branch, that would have been skull. But you don't feel pain, you feel boneless. The muscle along the break's edge is shocked, numb. Wrecked cartilage can't sense the damage yet. Isn't the air extraordinarily clear? Nothing is clearer now to you. As if cares leashing you to yourself have snapped, you're let off the hook. Immediate problems feel safely remote. No cold, no thirst, not fearing the worst, for you've left no note. Who'll explore off-route trails after finding your car? When? But this compels you less than the spent sun's design, azure and freaks of orpiment slashed by dark mauve hawk talons above silhouette pine tops you can't but admire, hapless as your collapse under them was. Stars, or is it Venus and Mars, rise. Their fire shivers a little, the way coins tossed in a fountain pay out, then snatch away the gleams their faces refract up through the nervous water's kicked surface. The stars brighten, or do they darken? You've piqued their interest with your stillness, intriguing them to lean closer, squinting to see you, sea thing, chill echinoderm, who in its salt medium would regrow that limb. Okay, switching gears to a lighter tone there. Nobody died, so all is good. So this, I have a visual aid for the next poem. Next poem has a dog in it. Does anyone have a dog? How many dog owners? Okay, so here's my visual aid. Can you see it? Okay, and it's National Poultry Month, right? So here we have the poultry. This is a character in the next poem. This is the actual squeaky toy that you will meet in this poem. And this poem started very seriously. It's a poem called Fado. It takes its title from the Portuguese, those mournful love songs sung by people wonderfully like Amalia Rodriguez. And so I was sort of playing with the idea of Fido, Fado. And there's this great quote by Auden, which starts the poem. Auden has a poem called They're Lonely Betters. And in the poem, the speaker of that poem says, words are for those with promises to keep. And I thought that was an interesting premise to think about humans and animals. And then I also thought about a sort of conversation that one might have with somebody who isn't a dog owner. So the poem has two points of view in it, which I think you'll hear. Fado, words are for those with promises to keep. Dogs' feelings aren't complex, you say. They lack our nuances of mood. They look sad when we leave them, sure, and their joy at a roll in deer poo's indisputable. But they don't mull over what they've done badly. No guilt bites them. No pre-dawn sorrow yawns. Well, maybe you're right, but then what's gnawing at my pup? Each night he howls, accompanied by wheezes from a squeaky chicken toy he squeezes balefully with his front paw. He cries as if all faith is flawed. I've laughed at my companion pumping his slapstick bandoneon, then sobered at the ache his notes reveal. Some sorrow at the heart of things haunts the rubber chicken's songs, and he responds until, lonesome as a train's whistle, Late in the darkness, his wails unsettle, a valve my throat must struggle to keep shut. The chicken has no minor chords. The dog's expressiveness wants words. Still, that strain descends into the human soul and sounds, depths only the inarticulate can feel. Okay, let there be more squeaky chickens in our lives. Here's another poem that I think many of us in Connecticut will feel familiar with. This is a poem about gypsy moths. Many people in the state have had gypsy moth infestations in the past few years. How many people have had gypsy moths in their area? Raise your hands. Okay, not yet. If you haven't raised your hand, it's probably a not yet. So this is a poem sort of responding to that, the sadness of a gypsy moth infestation that devastated our area a few years back. Gypsy moths, caterpillar stage. Oh, and I should say one thing to put this in context. So gypsy moths were intentionally imported into the United States. There was a speculator who thought that they might work in the 1880s, who thought that they might work as a replacement for silk moths, because silk moths, as we know, are notoriously fussy eaters. They like to eat only mulberry leaves, right? Which is why we have so many mulberry trees around in this part of Connecticut, because there was quite a cottage industry of silk, local, domestic silk weavers in the area. And so the bombyx moth, which is mentioned in the poem as well, the bombyx is the silk moth. It's very finicky. It eats only mulberry leaves. And so a speculator in Medford, Massachusetts thought, wouldn't it be great if we could import a moth that was less finicky? And so that's how we got the gypsy moth. Gypsy moths, caterpillar stage. A silk mistake imported for your thread's potential, the shantung shining in the speculator's eyes, since you, unlike your cousin bombyx, graze unfinicky on leaves of every species. Now you nibble forests to lace. A silicotic lung sickens one morning in my oak tree's vast estate. The speckles hatch and soon, by inches, devastate, chewing till I walk among slicks of frass to mourn the branches' skeletons. The woods around me rustle with the patter of countless soft digestive tubes raining fecal matter as you profit from derangement in the seasons. One fungus, finding you delicious, spun through you every spring and snipped your threads within. But that was back before the weeks of wet its spores required to sprout began delaying arrival while your eggs had not. You curse the deer, the nesting birds, the squirrels, all who forage acorns or shelter in the foliage. You curse the person who can hear a tree falling before it falls, who loved its leaves on days when the weather was changeable as a mind, susurrating in wind, and silvering their silky, freshly woven sleeves. Okay, and I'm going to finish with a new poem. So this is a poem that was inspired by seeing a fish ladder recently. Does everyone know what a fish ladder is? So, this wonderful invention put in often beside dams. It's like a little stepped causeway so that fish that are trying to spawn, can make it up around a dam or an obstacle. And these fishways were started to be built in the 19th century in the US when dams started to close off a lot of areas that previously fish would have been able to swim up and down. So a fish ladder is a remarkable thing. But I was also thinking about this poem is in some ways really more a response to, I think, probably our contemporary political climate, in which it's very hard to have conversations with people because we disagree so much, right? There are so many moments where we disagree with people. Even people with whom we might be very aligned sometimes have views that seem shocking to us. So I think seeing the fish ladder and also sort of feeling kind of oppressed or inability to communicate with one another, at least that's how I often feel, made this poem happen. So, Fish Ladder. We reroute the sluice of rivers so fish can tackle an obstacle we've built. Elvers, alewives, herrings teem below the dam, stopped. A parallel flume stepped into ascending pools and weirs, turns impossible climb to passable swim, and spares wear and tear on schools of fingerlings. Likewise, I will canalize conversations to bypass blocks certain topics with certain persons always raise. It exhausts my patience, slamming my scales over and over against the rocks. To find we whose views are so aligned, askew on a key subject, one of us is obtuse. Lying awake, either abject or vitriolic, I fantasize how my perspective, shad-like, invasive, might maneuver upstream via rain-filled locks letting into rising lakes, at last to arrive above impediments at headwaters where the sediments more golden sand than muddy silt, and spawn and milt, meet and swirl and fertilize and thrive and colonize the watershed.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. I have to say, I've made several comments in the chat. The sonics of your poems are just wonderful. You can definitely tell you choose your words very, very wisely. Wonderful, just wonderful sounds to your poems and content too, but just love to listen. So thank you. Yeah, and again, please feel free to put comments in the chat. It's great to hear what people think about your work. Okay, so next up we have Charles Rafferty. Charles Rafferty is the author of 15 poetry books and chapbooks, most recently The Appendectomy Grin, which is forthcoming from BOA Editions, and A Cluster of Noisy Planets, one of my favorites. His poems have appeared in The New Yorker, Plowshares, Gettysburg Review, Prairie Schooner, Poetry Daily, and in many other journals. He is also the author of short stories and a novel, Moscodelphia, and is a songwriter and naturalist as well. So, and Rafferty is the director at a research and advisory firm. So if you would, please welcome Charles Rafferty.
Thank you so much, Barb. And there's a lot of familiar names in the audience. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. And, you know, Barb and Lucy, thank you for hosting us. And Penelope, there was a lot of great lines in your poems, but the one that sticks with me and that I wrote down is "my oak tree's vast estate." I love that phrase. So thank you for that. I'm going to read a bunch of prose poems tonight. And I'll start with a couple from a book that I published a while ago called The Smoke of Horses. I'll just read two poems from there. And I don't have a lot of stories behind my poems, and hopefully you can't hear my parakeet in the background. Is it a problem? Like, as soon as I start to talk, he's like, "Oh, the flock." My wife is pulling him away. Okay, so I don't have a lot of stories behind my poems, so forgive me if they seem to come at you rapid fire, but they are all tiny. And this first one is called Diminution. And the only thing I'll say about it is I remember wanting to write a poem about this on my first day of college when I was in my intro to philosophy class. And the first line of the poem is something that resonated with me, which I'm sure you'll understand. Diminution. Socrates taught Plato, and Plato taught Aristotle, and Aristotle taught Alexander the Great, who founded a city that would house the most voluminous library of the ancient world, until it was burned, until forgetting came back into vogue. The great minds come down through the years like monkeys descending from high branches. Always a leopard is waiting to greet them in the tall grass, among the magnetic berries, in the place they should have checked. And the last poem in this book is also a library poem. The only thing you need to know is that it mentions remoras, which are, if you've ever watched Shark Week, they're those fish that are always stuck all over the shark's belly, basically feeding on the things that fall out of the larger shark's mouth. It's called The Saddest Bid for Immortality Ever Devised. I used to transcribe my poems on the blank pages of books by famous poets. I imagined they would ride into the future like remoras, suckered to the belly of a powerful shark. But the librarian would always find them and black them out. Later, she resorted to excising the vandalized pages with a ruler and a blade. Those stubs at the end of Paradise Lost in the Mount Laurel Public Library, that's me. This poem is called Greetings, and I'll read a few poems from A Cluster of Noisy Planets. And this is the opening poem. It's called Greetings. I counted the water towers, the active smokestacks. These were the breadcrumbs I thought would lead me back. Now I know it's possible to drive so far, we forget why we left, that the journey continues even after the car breaks down. I used to think I had no message, but the message is me, bloodshot and hungry, spilled coffee down the front of my shirt. People of the future, gather round. I have traveled through ink to greet you. This is called The Pond. The world is in short supply. This field of goldenrod will never be enough, and the ocean feels suddenly crossable. In every apple an orchard waits, but who has 20 years to cultivate it? Above our house, the contrails of the jets have turned into actual clouds. The rain they promise is another lie. Meanwhile, the taste of my blood implies that I am rusting, that a broken machine lies half submerged in the pond I carry with me. This is called Marbles. At a certain point, manic depression became bipolar disorder. The world has always been in flux. Just look at the sky. There are fewer stars now than when I was a boy. I cannot say who took them. I cannot remember the pictures that they made. Consider Istanbul. It used to be Constantinople, and before that Byzantium. Nothing endures. I had a jaw men wanted to punch. Now the ground I stand upon feels like it's made of marbles. In Wyoming, they've just begun hunting the grizzly bear again. It is finally safe enough to be killed. I can't get over it. My teeth were once a dazzling white. All three of my brothers were living. Inadvertent mousetrap. The moon doesn't look different despite our having been there. That's the exception. Even the slopes of Everest are stained with urine and the bodies of fallen climbers. Just look at Brooklyn. It used to be farms, and before that, forests. Last November, I stood a bottle in the shed. By the time the lilacs had broken out, the bottle was full of dead mice in search of a tunnel that would take them to warmth. It's just another story, another attempt at tranquility, undone by our lightest touch. I'll read one more poem from this collection, and then I'll read some newer prose poems. This one is called The End of Mystery. Here, in the golden age of pornography, the full range of human pleasure and degradation fits inside our pockets. Year by year, the stars get harder to see, and my cigarettes have blurred the once fine distinction my tongue could make of your body. The answers exist, and Google is happy to find them for us. Someday soon, they tell me, a robot will be able to write this poem, only better, and in a font I can't imagine. So I've kept writing prose poems, though I've recently stopped. I've got a new collection coming out with BOA called The Appendectomy Grin, and I feel like I just rode that wave as long as I could. I started to feel bored writing them, and I'm on to something else now. But I do like these prose poems, and I do want to share a handful of them with you tonight. And this first one references I guess a sculpture of Nefertiti, which is famous for having a missing eyeball. The sculpture it's just missing and nobody knows where that eye has gone. And this poem is called The Problem with Mutability. I've been thinking about Nefertiti's missing eye, and there are nights my wife recalls that suggest I was somebody else. The juniper stump at the end of our driveway has finally dissolved after 20 years. I got rid of the tree because it was hard to see the oncoming traffic, but I was too cheap to pay for a grinding. When our parakeet escaped, I put his cage on the back porch and believed he wouldn't forget us after making the sky's acquaintance. That's how dumb I was, is what I'm trying to say. That's how full of hope. Conversation piece. After the honeybees die out, somebody will start selling bee boxes as coffee tables, conversation pieces, something to hold a chessboard in the modern American living room. The signs are not good. The caviar industry wants to know why there aren't more sturgeon, and we're at the point where selling permits to hunt elephants is supposed to be good for elephants. I have come to learn it is difficult to do what is right for my children. Meanwhile, the snowy egret lives on in my grandmother's hat, the one that, in a sense, has never gone out of style. A love poem of sorts. This morning, I threw a stone at a butterfly as it floated toward the purple hydrangea. Had I taken care while aiming, I'm certain I would have missed. Now its beauty is open to my inspection, and I can rub away the powder of its yellow wings. After all these years, this is how I think of you, if I think of you at all. My darling, my dead butterfly. I'll just read two more. This one is called The Land of Steady Decline. I can't do a cartwheel anymore, and like everyone else, I waste a lot of time on Facebook. The only thing I've learned there is that the beauties of high school have all turned into Republicans. It's a shame. I doubt that anyone will tune this piano. Like the dog, it has been in steady decline. I'm no arborist, so I didn't know how to trim this tree without killing it. Now its branches are in the power lines, and no one will hold the ladder. And I'll end with this one. It's called The Strength of American Wishes. To make a better postcard, someone dug a tunnel into the redwood and let a car pass through. We can't do that anymore, just like we can't find a passenger pigeon. They died out because of our wish to always hit something when firing a gun. Comebacks can happen, though. Think of that photograph of bison skulls piled higher than a house. We went from 60 million animals in 1800 to 541 in 1889. Now we are raising them for steak and dog food. Now we are making our money. And that's all I got. Thank you for listening.
Our pleasure. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Just Yeah, see in the chats, all the wonderful comments. Just, yeah, incredible images. Thank you. Okay. Next up we have, and I'm very, very honored to present Margaret Gibson. Margaret, who served as Connecticut's State Poet Laureate from 2019 to 2022, has published 14 books of poems with LSU Press, most recently Draw Me Without Boundaries. Her awards include the Lamont Selection, Melville Cain Award, Connecticut Book Award twice. She was a finalist for the National Book Award in 1993 and for the Poets Prize in 2016. With a grant from the Academy of American Poets, Gibson edited the anthology, which many of you are familiar with, I'm sure, Waking Up to the Earth, Connecticut Poets in a Time of Global Climate Crisis. Gibson is a UConn Professor Emerita. So please welcome Margaret Gibson. Yay, Margaret.
There we go. All right. Good. I have a cold and I thought I was going to have the voice of a frog. For a minute, I thought I was going to be muted. So thank you, Barb, and thank you, Lucy, for hosting us. Thank you, wonderful company of poets with whom I'm honored to be reading. I love the work that I've heard so far, and I'm looking forward to hearing Ben. I think I've been hearing traces of, in many of your poems, about themes that I'm going to come at rather simply and rather directly. April is National Poetry Month. It also has in it Earth Day, of course. But when I was putting this reading together, I was struck by the fact that today has been, I think, miscalled the Day of Liberation. And I thought it would be a mistake to ignore the fact that we're in a political crisis. It would be a mistake to ignore the misuse of words. So I'm going, and I'm going to read some poems that are mostly political, mostly on the short side in my work. I'm sorry I can't read to you from Draw Me Without Boundaries, but I don't have the voice for that tonight, and I don't have enough space. That's a book with a big canvas. So here we go. I'm not going to make many comments between the poems. I think you will find them fairly easy to follow. Ruler. With a ruler, you can measure how wide the oil spill and the eye of the storm. With a ruler and a pen, you can rule straight through words like climate, crisis, democracy, vaccine. With a ruler, you can measure how wide of the mark, how wide of the truth you can go, how deep the foundation, how sturdy the house, or do you want it to crumble? With a ruler that unfolds on hinges, you can measure the line of pre-approved voters, not to be confused with the longer lines of the deportees or the detained. You'll know who's with you, who's not, also the length of the wall and how many coils of razor wire you'll need. With the simplest of tools, you can calculate how far the markets will tumble, also how far below you can go beyond the rule of law. Rule out failure, capitalize everything, then alter your comb over, measure for new clothes, increase the size of the suits that can't cover your nakedness. There are no tariffs on naked. Okay. American fascism. Oh, I should say that I was on the porch of a friend of mine. There is a merry-go-round, one horse from a carousel, which I was looking at a lot last summer. American fascism. Where shall we run to? On this screened porch, a wooden merry-go-round stallion, pitch black, runs in place, suspended by chains from the rafters, its teeth bared, mouth pulled back by an invisible bit. No reins, no holding it back, its eyes wide open, wild. Tell me, you mute curio, you refugee of the world's gone mad again, what can we do? How will we live? Gunshots. Gunshots and the candidates elected. This is not child's play. The stampede's loosed. I hold out for I give a lot of reverence to the individual, but also to those who gather collectively, and also those who understand the indivisibility and interdependence of everything. So this is a poem called Alone Together. Mornings before sunrise, I stand at the side door looking out. It's a form of self-study. Outside, everything settles into its own shapeliness. The grassy slope, the stone bench, iris, each with its own shadow. No wind, and the hush feels like freedom. I have no idea what I mean by that, but there it is. On the slope to the pond, the lone crabapple tree tilts south, tugged by the sun, which realigned it. Or maybe I planted it by mistake at an angle. How we treat each other shapes us. We're not as apart as we think. In most respects, I'm just like you, whoever you are. But we're told we're not. We're taught to be separate, even in a crowd. I'm here in my doorway alone, waiting for the iris to outwit the drought. But am I alone in that? Like the trees, we take sunlash and wind whip. We make the worst of it or the best we can. We bend and we break. There's a clear shape to the slump of despair. But there's also a root steady shape to standing still, being a wolf tree, one limb after another broken off, a wide seam opening up, and still it keeps its dignity. I envy the old oak, also the iris and the stone bench, the lichen in its second skin. They live together without complaint, and I try to. Even if I don't know who you are, I'll stand up for our common humanity. I'm old enough to accept that I don't, and maybe you don't, know what to make of being alive, that we stutter step our way through, frightened and won't admit it, not to ourselves, not to each other, not when the shape of the distance between us presents itself as a dark funnel whirling that just may yank us out of ourselves and fling us back and forth the way a dog shakes a dead thing. We can do better. Can you hear me? We can do better. Everything I see out here, taking the torque of sunlight, is testimony to that. Into the heart of darkness. Mr. Kurtz, who is mentioned at the end of this poem, was a character in Conrad's novel. Into the heart of darkness. I want to feel it raw, take it in somehow. Children gunned down in their classrooms, the clerks behind the counter, the bystander, the co-worker, someone, anyone, whoever you happen to be, along with the others at the stadium, at the concert, at your place of worship, gunned down. Since COVID, the murder rate's up. I'd look up how much, but statistics buffer as much as they stun. And it's bad TV, isn't it? To imagine sirens, red and blue lights revolving around screams in the night. Because to imagine bullets fired by accident through windows or deliberately through a door is not to be on the other side of that door and take the bullet. If you think it's just cops I'm talking about, or guns in a city high-rise, let's include the homeowner taking aim, letting it fly when the kid already backing out the driveway she turned into by mistake. As for the gun in the babysitter's purse, guess who finds it? If we think violence cures violence, we're all of us victims. Why do we stand for it? Why don't we stop it? Why don't we admit that we can? When finally he sees for himself what he is, Mr. Kurtz, head in his hands, cries out, "The horror, the horror." That was in the novel. In the movie, Brando, big as life, takes us one step closer. I can see in his face what I avoid. What are words? As a child, I used to study my father's silences, so thick I could nearly see them suck the air out of a room. When I asked, my mother told me only this: he had the breath knocked out of him when he was a child. Older now, a woman whose work is saying words, I ask myself, are words merely shaped breath? If you take from a man his words, you take his breath. If you take from a man or a woman breath, you take life. You take away the freedom to live with respect. It doesn't matter if the word is written or punched into a machine. A word is still breath. No breath, no word. No words, no life. Would you knock the breath out of a woman? Would you press your knee to a man's throat? Would you? Would you? I hope everyone knows what a koan is. In Zen practice, a koan is a question or a riddle that really can't be, it contradicts itself. It can't be solved by using your rational mind, by thinking about it. And this poem is called Making Sense of the Daily Koan. Tell me, how does it make sense to say there is no self and the self knows it? To answer the question, reflect it back into your body. Gesture, cry out, or be still until question and answer see as one. But if you're stuck in a refuge of words, as I am, try not to ignore how apart you feel. Big mind, small mind, cloud burst. I can't say what self is, but it's not a treasure chest with a lock and key. More like a compass or a divining rod that pulses as it leads to water, like the deep sentience inside Big Mama Elephant, miles distanced from the water hole, as she nudges her family over fields that crack like puzzles. No rain in the forecast on any climate graph we might consult. For rain, understand, I may mean tears, the grief of things, the droughts, the wars, the famines, the intricate plots for profit and power. Wouldn't it be better to let you into my life and you let me put my palm to your cheek? Between you and me, us and them, human and earth's other creatures, a slip knot of wind, for want of a better word, links and frees us both at once. Mountain, human, cloud, root, microbe, soil, and seed, we anchor and reach as leaves from a common branch toward sun, toward unknown galaxies, then tumble back to earth. From the boundless, into the boundless, and back, moment by moment, breath by breath. This is our life. And finally, another poem that focuses on words and on the environment. Obad. If you don't know what that means, the last verse in the poem will tell you. Obad. Oh, I can't stand suspense. It's a morning poem. Okay. Obad. Wanting to believe that words can save us from the storms that are coming. Each morning I braid about my wrists the roots of the words I use, clear back to Sanskrit, bringing near what links us to the earth. The way the root of climate puts us on a curved slope of ground. We're nearer collapse than ever. I look up the word, it's earthbound gravitas, to slip together over the edge, along with the elephants, amphibians, oceans. Aren't we sapiens also in danger? I dig for the root, unearthing the inner overlord, the dominus, the one who thinks, I'm in charge. This morning, the sky is hazed. Can we admit we've done this? I look up haze, in 17th century Scots dialect, to hurt, to scold, or frighten. And we need to be frightened. Imagine this. The rain pulls up short, each raindrop the loop of a hangman's noose, and we dangle together in the thick morning light, pastures, woodlands, markets, empires, in a thick haze of smoke and chemicals. Take a breath. Does it hurt? Does it hurt enough? Is there anyone who doesn't know how it hurts when someone whose life is also your life dies? It's morning. We could be waking up in the tides of dawn light and desire, listening to the earth as it rings and echoes in words we taste as we tongue ourselves awake. Obad from the French, alba from the Spanish for dawn, a poem that braids us to the earth we are. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful, Margaret. I do hope, especially that first poem, I hope you're sending these out. More people need to hear them and read them and cheer them. Some very timely work. So thank you very much. You always write such powerful, timely work. So, all right, our last poet for this evening is Benjamin S. Grossberg. Ben's books of poetry include My Husband Would, winner of the 2021 Connecticut Book Award, and Sweet Core Orchard, winner of a Lambda Literary Award. A new collection, As Our Right Fit, was published by Farber Edition just last year, I believe. Ben also wrote the novel The Spring Before Obergefell. Ben, you're going to have to spell or pronounce it correctly for us. Obergefell, which was selected by Percival Everett for the 2023 AWP Award Series James Allen McPherson Prize. big honor, and great judge. Ben is the Director of Creative Writing at the University of Hartford. So Ben, pronounce it correctly for us, because I'm sure I messed it up.
It is Obergefell. It's the Supreme Court case of Obergefell versus Hodges that legalized gay marriage nationally.
Oh, great. Thank you. Oh, good. A hard G, not a soft one. Good.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Barb, for setting all this up, for everything you're doing for poetry community in our state. Thanks everybody for staying on to the last reader. I want to say I honestly feel a little abashed following those 4 readings. Yeah, if the evening stopped here, it would be one of the strongest poetry readings I've ever experienced. I'm going to read not from my new chapbook. I'm going to read poems from a manuscript, another chapbook manuscript that I've just finished. These are from a series of poems. It's a chapbook length series about a romantic connection with an octopus. And I suppose part of my interest there is to think about sort of the inherent queerness of that. But okay, I will say the poem's title is probably not much patter in between. A Bipus laments. Bipus laments. You're a mollusk, I say, and I have a spine, though it's true often it seems like I don't. He performs a kind of shrug, 2 tentacles rising, turning suckers up. You live in salt water, I in air. Gills, lungs. I slump against the mouth of the small underwater cave where he's been squatting for days and pretend the ocean is all the tears I'd shed if I had that kind of access to my own grief. He glides alongside and wraps a few tentacles around my shoulders. If we had met when I was 20, I say, then I could have charged headlong, could have pledged myself heedlessly. But now all I see are sharks and crags and stinging translucent trails of jellyfish running over my bare back. He slides a tentacle into my hand, as if to remind me how frivolous I was then, how given to whims of desire and jags of hurt, that I am now, in my trouble seeing, a gentler man. One, he seems to imply, worthy, almost worthy, of an octopus. Loving an octopus in middle age. This December darkness is so much like an ocean floor, I explain, that I already live near you. He titters. We play a game in bed, post-coitally, his squishy head resting just over my heart, where we find correspondence between our worlds. The comforter becomes a bed of sand, the headboard a rocky outcropping, and in a flight of fancy, he makes the ceiling fan our child, floating languidly above us. If it starts bawling, I say, it's your turn. He says, by way of a tickling tentacle, he wants to stay with me forever. And though I am no longer of an age to believe in forever, I say he can, he will. The dresser becomes a shark nosing close. The windows flash with passing headlights, jellyfish glinting in a moonlit current. The cat hops up and he wraps around me, my octopus, tight as a headmistress's hair bun. But come morning, saltwater beckons. I wake as many times before, alone on damp sheets. The octopus never speaks in these poems. He's an octopus. The childhood of an octopus lover. The childhood of an octopus lover. In the 1980s sitcom of my life, my folks sit across from me. You've been acting weird lately, champ. I hang my head. We just want what's best for you, honey. I work up nerve, slowly. Then, eyes down to the rug, I mumble, octopus. Inaudible, as sister bursts in, muddy in her softball digs, smacking a fist into her mitt. Boy, we sure showed them. She narrates the game. I slink upstairs. By the end of the episode, it's all okay. My folks and I sit on the dock, legs dangling. I point to the water. Dad says, "We love you no matter what." Next season, there's a shot of me by my locker, chatting with an octopus. And for the series finale, rumors of a kiss. In real life, I sit on the couch beside mom and brothers, watching a show in which some kid adopts a pet squid. My brothers groan. I'm silent, mind racing, eyes forward, desperate not to glance around. Will they read it on my face? Me, the show's about me. Pillow talk. Somehow, we get on the subject of mothers. I probably dragged us there. And then to a particularly grim moment from late in the chemo. She's in the front passenger, barking into a small plastic trash can, the kind you find in the corner of a bathroom. Wasn't really barking, I say. It just sounded like it, the echo of her retching into the can. He's wrapping me tight, my octopus. He knows I need it when I get like this. It's well after midnight. We're lying abed in the dark. Tell me, I say, about the rows of egg sacs, the bursting, how you launched with thousands, each of you smaller than a thimble, how the vast ocean became the womb you guys swam in. With a single sucker, he strokes my hair. Hair seems to fascinate him. What in his world is like it? Do you think about her, I ask? The octopus who laid those eggs and then stopped eating, devoting all her energy to their care? It's not easy to tell when an octopus is sad, a wilting of tentacle or the shush of air leaving its body. I nuzzle close and call him hatchling. I think if he could talk, at moments like this, he'd call me baby. My octopus lover makes no bones. My octopus lover makes no bones. I have a perpetually runny nose, my apologies. Sometimes he just zips off, leaving me twiddling my thumbs on the ocean floor, and returns with objects, artifacts of the human that drifted to silt, often mossed over Coke cans. With my thumb, I rub off the layer of grime so he can see the metal gleam. He'll bring a can right up to his eye, before tossing it over his mantle. He finds stranger stuff too, like an old-style computer mouse, which I had to explain was in fact not a mutant horseshoe crab, but a tool. He knows tools and bent a tentacle over it, sliding it on the ocean floor as if moving a cursor, before throwing it, too, over his mantle, into what had become by then a large pile. And once, he brought back a clattering of bones. He lowered beside me like a prize claw, opening his tentacles to deposit them. I laid the bones out roughly in the shape of a human, though lots were missing, half the rib cage, a femur, hands. The skull, the crowning piece, I set on last. Then I lay beside it in the same position, Vitruvian, so he could see how this jumble makes a man. To this day, he still tentacle pokes my knees, elbows, and especially the sides of my head, as if testing for them. I fear it bothers him, all these hardnesses I seem to harbor, all my human junk. This poem is a little different than the others. In this poem I'm about to read, I don't speak to the octopus. The octopus sort of speaks back, but he doesn't have language. So the poem is titled, and it's a running title, so it bleeds right into the poem. The poem is titled "Through Tentacle Semaphore, comma, my octopus." Through tentacle semaphore, my octopus says that my native element is liquid, that I'm an amphibian longing to pull my legs back into the swollen belly of my torso, that frogs, if they wish hard enough, can turn back into tadpoles, that the human womb is a tight-fitting ocean, that we can be in the undersea grotto where he dwells, prenatal twins, that Earth will be our mother, that it's a sunside prejudice to conflate Earth with the dirt layer, that once I swam laps in my folks' pool at sunset, that it was, he is sure, the closest a body ever held me in that house. A body of water, he asides, is no less a body. That our future is as entwined as our past. That once one creature contained both our possibilities. Your line, he quips, went to Pete. Mine stayed cool. That love is a liquid state, and I've searched only congealed realms. That after I join him in the water, I can beach occasionally, wash up on the margins of the world that I've left, even on my squishy parts, feel a little hot grit. That this will help me recall where I've been and how, he notes, on a planet all but covered in water, you thirsted. And just one more octopus poem. I give my octopus lover a ring. Not telephone. I give my octopus lover a ring. It was my grandmother's, I say. He holds out a tentacle, and I push the ring against the tip a few times before realizing it will never fit. Does he notice? Limbs a quiver, he throws himself against me, and the ring goes flying, only to tumble into a cloud of silt. I panic, turn to look for it, but he grabs my hand, then bunches and blooms forward, dangling me off to the side as he shoots through the water. We set down by a galleon, huge, sand-embedded, with a cannonball puncture splintering its side. He slips in. Would my grandmother be more horrified that I lost her ring or that I gave it to a mollusk? There's so much she died without knowing. Suddenly, he reappears, my octopus, thoroughly bejeweled, pearl strands hanging off him, a tiara balanced atop, and, tentacle cradled to his chest, a heap of gold rings, which he dumps in my lap like a slot machine payout. You know, I say, slipping one on, maybe grandmother would have liked you. He reaches up with two tentacles and puts the tiara on my head. Okay, my cat is officially going crazy. That is my alarm clock to let me know that my time is up. Thank you all so much for listening.
Dan, this was wonderful. I'm going to be thinking about this all night, you know. It's so charming. It's funny. It's sad. It's got it all. So, but I'm going to be thinking about it all night. But what is the metaphor? So thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you all the poets this evening. We've had some comments that it's like one of the best readings ever, which I totally agree with. Wonderful, wonderful reading. thank you, Lucy and Ridgefield Library, for giving us a
Oh, you're
home.
so
for-
welcome. This was delightful. I
really,
enjoyed
really.
it all.
So, and happy National Poetry Month, everybody. Write poems, read poems, buy poetry books. And we'll see you next time, I hope, in May. So thank you. Have a good evening. Thank
Good
you.
night,
Lucy.
Barb.
Good night.